Hi, I'm Mahesh.
I'm Harni.
We are the founders of Basil, the most iconic destination for kids.
If you're parents and haven't checked this out, visit yourbasil.com to get our certificates. We make products through which kids can tell stories. So what you see here is the Bengal bag inspired by Sundarbans. It's a bestseller today. It's also a 3-compartment lunchbox that is leak-proof, carry anything, anywhere, tilt it however you want, and nothing will slip.
And I'm a mom of twins. Mahesh and I are married together. We're building this brand for our kids and all their friends and people of their generation. We've pretty much created a category here. The price point that we are operating in is now 25-30% of Amazon's sales. We've pretty much created this category for Amazon. In this process have become a market leader in this category in Amazon. We own the entire bento box category already.
By the way, how many lunch boxes did you sell in the first month versus 300 planned?
We sold about 1,000 units in 7 days.
Solve one problem, 3 other problems come through. You solve those 3 problems, 30 other problems come through. Then you have to and you come to a point where oh god, 2 months ago what we had was much better. And you can't go back to that.
What did the two of you noticed about parents' behavior? Because if you think of Milton and Cello, they've been selling 40 years, producing mass products.
I think the fundamental thing is millennials became parents. This was the generation that was very different from the previous generation. Parents are living through kids. And whatever they didn't have access to,
They want to give it
they wanted to give it to their kids because it's their pathway to kind of live the world that they kind of missed, right? This is the psychological aspect.
Why is it hard for anyone else to copy what you're doing?
Anybody can copy your product,
Product.
but they cannot copy what you stand for. And to be really honest, I would want to kill my own products. I mean,
before someone else
someone else kills it, right?
So how do you guys handle disagreement? Husband-wife team, Uber, Amazon, different principles, different background. Who has the final say when... Hi everyone, welcome to the show. Today we have Harni and Mahesh with us. They are the founders of Basil. So Basil is building high quality, very beautiful looking everyday products for kids. They're less than 2 years old, but in 2 years they have actually grown very fast and have become one of the most loved products in the kids category. And we also had the fortune of backing them in their recent round, which also happens to be Prime's first D2C investment. So Harni and Mahesh, welcome to the show. I'm really excited about talking to the two of you and especially pulling your legs because that's the whole intention of shooting this show. So we'll get started with the introductions, right? Before we dive into your story, how did you start the company, right? I want you to both introduce yourself and introduce Basil as a brand. But introduce yourself and the brand, assuming you're talking to your customers. And your customers are not the parents, but the 7-8-year-old kids. So who wants to go first?
I'll go first. Hi, I'm Mahesh. I'm the founder of the lunchbox that you use every day. And if you don't use it every day, please introduce me to your parents. Let me have a chat with them. And I've worked for about 18 years and I'm a typical engineer MBA consultant, but then the last 15 years I've been working with startups. Basil basically grew out of an idea that Harni, my co-founder, and I had because we believe that there is a very large white space for kids products.
Buzzword use kar rahe ho, Mahesh. White spaces.
It's so easy.
Kids don't.
I can't take the AI route much, so I have to use everything else.
Okay.
पूरा list बना के रखा है मैंने. And so we believe there is a lot of brands for babies. There's a lot of brands for adults, but kids between 4 to 12, we thought there was a lack of really lovable brands, and that's what we're playing in. And yeah, very excited to be here. And I won't bore you with the rest of my professional career. I've been part of iconic brands that you use on a day-to-day basis, but I'll let her introduce herself.
So Anita for task. Now that he's
He's actually spoken about everything. But very recently, I realized that I actually connect with Gen Alpha, and it was like a wow moment for me. You know what we connected on? Harry Potter. So we're not very different from the generation that we are building for. So I'm Harni, and I'm a mom of twins. Mahesh and I are married together. We're building this brand for our kids and all their friends and people of their generation. I started my career as a brand manager with Johnson & Johnson, predominantly spent the last decade in e-commerce, Flipkart and Amazon, where I built categories, driven growth, revenue, marketing, product management, all of it. And I think finally when my kids decided to go to school is when we realized that, hey, yes, we were looking for products for them, couldn't find one that we loved and that we would buy and use for themselves. So realized that there's an opportunity here that we can go after. And we're building Basil as to become an iconic destination for everything kids.
You missed the question I asked, which is how would you introduce Basil to 7-year-old? Different from what Mahesh just said.
So, see, the reality is, I think the reality is
You don't have to
most
introduce.
of we don't introduce, right? So most of our conversation with kids are largely around, hey, what do you use and what do you want, right? And hey, this is what you want, we'll make it for you, right? That's pretty much the conversation with most kids. But I think if you were to why they pick Basil, right? It's more about not just the product or the lunchbox. It's largely the design that goes on the brand, right? And that's what we most of our conversations with kids are about, the beautiful designs and aesthetics.
All right. So now we'll get into some more serious stuff. So both of you have very successful corporate startup experiences, right? I'm just wondering why even startup? Mahesh, you were at Uber, one of the first employees, and Harni, you were at Amazon. Why take all this jhanjat of building a company?
I mean, I'll
And especially both of you together.
We're doing this so that nobody has to ask us any questions.
but
And
Or the
we
sense of
set
the founder.
priorities for others.
But the company is for you, so that you are your own boss.
first up, I think there was enough janjat in our professional careers also. Like there's enough hard work.
Maybe I should do the podcast with the manager.
Yeah, exactly. I think both of us have been fortunate to work in companies which were very small and then became really iconic names. In certain cases, they became verbs that you use every day, right? And somewhere on the line, I think it was natural that, like, that ignited the urge that why not build a brand, a lovable brand for ourselves. And both of us have fairly complementary skill sets. It just made a lot of sense to do something together. The timing of it was what was always a question mark, but the fact that we wanted to do something together, build a lovable brand, that was something that we knew. And somewhere along the way, we just, I mean, no time is absolutely right, but there is no wrong time to start up either. If you look at what's happening in India over the last 10, 15 years, I can't think of a wrong time to start up. So that's what I would like put in. And I think serendipitously, we just landed as parents to twins, and, like, we just landed into this.
Gold mine opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying not to use buzzwords, but see, I think one of the things that we always knew was we started with the target segment closest to us, which is millennial parents, like you and I, including you
I'm
into
probably
that. Yes. We were looking at multiple different problem statements or what could potentially be a great opportunity. And then we just, our twins turned 4+ and they started going to school for the first time. And then actually, after they turned 4 or 5, right, like we started having this question always on, like, where do we go to buy essentials for them, right? Like when they were babies, we knew very clearly, and as adults, we know clearly where to go for what. But, like, then we started peeling the onion a lot deeper. We started having a lot of conversations, and then we realized there was enough to do for kids in the age group of 4 to 12. We didn't find brands that were designing for kids, so which is what we flipped around and said, like, this is what we would do. That's pretty much how this, over a period of time, just morphed into what we are doing today.
And Harni, was there a moment while you were thinking of starting up where you questioned, why am I doing this? Like, I mean, people develop cold feet while starting up. I remember at least that's what
To be
happened with
very
me.
honest, right? I think because we're a very design-led brand, our initial product was actually completely designed in-house, right? Both the industrial design and the product design, and took us really long time to get the first product out.
Yeah.
Right? There was a lot of iteration. We were struggling with, hey, is it leak-proof enough? Is it easy to open and close enough, etc. Right? So that period of moment, the first, I would say maybe 6 to 8 months, when the brand was not yet out in the market, the product was not yet out in the market, there was no revenue. We were struggling. I mean, obviously questioning, are we doing the right thing? Because we're spending a lot of time, the product is not yet out. What do we, there's no revenue coming in. But after we put the product out and after we put the brand out, right, I would say that we've never gone back to that thought at all. Because I think from the minute we got out, I think we learned two things. One is, of course, we got stocked out very quickly. So we knew we had a PMF here and we can build pretty fast. But also, the second thing is, we learned a lot. I think the mistake we made when we started out in the first 6 months was we were iterating a lot. We were questioning ourselves a lot without putting a product out in the market. The biggest feedback came in when consumers started using, right? And using that for iteration and rapid improvement helped the process a lot.
But I guess
So-
in hardware kind of businesses like yours, right? It's just hard to iterate. Like, and a software product, you can build it, you can launch an app, you can launch a website and quickly get feedback. I'm wondering, how did you even thought through the functional use cases, the fact that design will be important while you were conceptualizing?
So we've always put consumers front and center, right? Right from which category to launch, which product to launch, we've always, and even today, right? Even which design to launch, we always go back to consumers. We have multiple designs, we test it with them, concepts, sketches, etc. So during this process, what we realized that while we had many designs, right? What we realized was consumers wanted a particular product because in their head they thought it was a bento box, right? Which is pretty much how we identified bento box as a space. There was also Amazon keyword search volume around bento boxes. We saw it was growing. There was no brand operating in this category, so it was pretty much like a niche subcategory within lunch boxes, which was out for winning, right? But the thing is, as we put these designs out, we kind of got a consensus from consumers as to which direction we need to build in. Beyond that, there is an element of gut call that you'll have to take when you're building products that are very capital investment heavy.
Yeah.
And it cannot be completely codified. You can try as much, but over time you will realize it's pretty much like a trained, I would say, feedback loop in your head, right? This kind of a design direction will work for the brand, will work for the category that we operate in. So that's one piece, but the other piece are all these subtle nuances around, is it leak proof? It's a functional requirement consumers want. But if this lunchbox had to be leak proof, it also needs to shut down tightly. Right?
That makes it difficult to open.
It difficult to open.
Yeah.
So these were some of the pieces that we could iterate after launch.
What else was a bigger surprise when you initially launched after 8-9 months of effort, thinking through that this is what will work in the market when you launched it?
Okay, I think we had underestimated the potential because we were operating at a much higher price point. Before we launched,
Yeah.
I think the average price point in this category was 400
Actually,
rupees,
I wanted to ask,
500
who buys
rupees.
3,000 rupees and 1,000 rupee lunch boxes?
So I remember the first projection, I had estimated that we would sell 300 units a month or something of that sort, because that's what the category size looked at that point in time. But what we've actually gone and done is we've pretty much created a category here. The price point that we are operating in is now 25-30% of Amazon's sales. We've pretty much created this category for Amazon in this process, have become a market leader in this category in Amazon. We own the entire bento box category already, and we're doing it in another category called the insulated food jar as well. Again, we are the most expensive. So what we really underestimated was willingness of Indians, millennial parents to pay.
spend,
Yeah. When they're
That's actually
spending for
surprising
themselves,
how expensive this
they would be.
Yeah.
That is largely because most of the brands operating in some of these categories have not innovated. They've always, I would say, I mean, they're doing a great job, right? They are the market leaders, obviously, but they've always focused on the, I would say, economical price point, that they never really thought that there could be a larger market at the higher end of the spectrum as
And
well.
is it mainly because of their past 30-40 years of experience? For example, the categories you play in, there is Milton, there is Cello, there are established behemoths, right? Yeah. I mean, as founder, when you start a company, there is always this question, how will you compete against them and win against them?
So every company, once you start, right, you develop some of the core pillars on which you operate. And some of the large brands, especially where they have their own in-house capacity and factory utilization, capacity utilization becomes very important.
Yeah.
So the way they are structured, it is natural to focus on the larger volume market. We take the exact opposite route, right? We are not a manufacturing first company. We would call ourselves a design first company. What we focus on is great design. People should be willing to pay premium for the design, and actually consumers resonate, right? Like we've run consumer surveys now to understand the brand health in the market. And we are extremely differentiated on a couple of aspects like unique designs and great aesthetics and modern vibe, etc. So our core pillar is design, and we will replicate this across multiple different categories.
And that's
And
how you fight to beat
that
the
is how
curve.
we fight. And we'll take a segment away from.
By the way, how many lunchboxes did you sell in the first month versus 300 planned?
We sold about 1,000 units in 7 days.
7 days.
And then we went out of stock.
Yeah.
Our journey
Next waited for another month. to
our
get
journey the entire first year was we are out of stock, we are out of stock. What do we do?
And so, Mahesh, I presume you would then be in China figuring out how to solve the out of stock problem.
So I think it helped in two ways. One, we always had bets as to how much. So I had a much more aggressive view than Harini. So I won the bet, so which is great. But structurally and systemically, it just gave us the edge with our manufacturer, because someone taking a bet on an unknown brand, where the design is new, the entire concept was also fairly new for this particular manufacturer, and it took a long time to get it out, right? Like that's the thing that a manufacturer hates.
Yeah.
Best thing manufacturer likes is like, I already make this product, I can make it in my sleep, just make as much of
As
the
many
product
of
as
them as
possible,
possible.
right?
Yeah.
So it gave, and we also had we were fairly demanding in a lot of ways. It made it ultimately clear to the manufacturer that like, okay, fine, these guys are onto something. They are coming back for repeat orders. Like much later, the factory told me that like, we never expected you to like order more at all. I thought this 1,000 I said,
wanted to
that's
get
it,
rid of
it was
Mahesh.
gone. I
Take
never
100
thought you'll
boxes and
come
don't
here
show up
again.
again.
But I ended up going and like spending like close to a month sitting there, iterating more on like what could be done. We had more drops in designs that we
Yeah.
kept coming through. That really, really helped. But again, I think
But also, it gave the confidence to
Yeah.
start the India manufacturing piece
Yeah.
pretty much.
Exactly.
I think in a couple of months after we launched, we
We
started
did like,
working on India manufacturing piece because that's a much more complex problem to crack and solve than,
Yeah.
so the design piece.
Yeah, the
So,
amount of complexity that
Yeah.
hide behind these beautiful boxes is massively
Yeah.
underestimated by anyone who sees this.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Amount of
it looks
work
like just a
required.
dabba, but like there's just so much more nuances. Like
Yeah.
I have enormous respect for every small thing that gets manufactured.
Yeah.
But the thing is like, I mean, you need to sort of like also like figure out what there's multiple forces that you need to balance. Like a manufacturer has to be happy.
Yeah.
You can't have a lot of inventory that is not getting sold. You also don't want to be out of stock for way too long.
Yeah.
And you need to ensure that like you're consistently growing as well, right? Like the balancing act was what was difficult, but it is infinitely better to be in a place where your demand is less of a problem and you're always supplying.
Got it.
Even at Uber, we always had supply issues. India will be a supply constrained market. We just have way too much more demand than supply. And getting supply is not an overnight process. Demand can come overnight. Right? That is always going to be a better
Yeah.
place to be in. So we're very thankful for that. But of course, yeah, the first 6 months was all about just convincing, like, please make more, please make more.
Well,
There is
tell
demand.
more about the Chinese person, right? Stan.
Yeah.
How did you convince him? Like some Indian shows up and says, I want these better boxes.
See, of course, there's been like almost, you cannot replicate 3 years of
And you
a
don't
relationship.
eat non-vegetarian, so food would have been an issue. He would
Yeah,
be
I mean-
wondering like what kind of a person I showed up at my factory store.
I've made my peace. Like I know my places to get vegetarian food, but I discovered the secret of fasting when I was in China. We can do a separate podcast on that separately, but I think one is, see, it's a family business, and we are also in some sense like husband and
Yeah.
wife doing this together. Ultimately, for any business, any vendor that you work with, money speaks, right? The money can come a little later, but just the prospect of over the next few years, not months, that is very important, right? Like you don't want to be that brand that buys once and then shuts for like 8 9 months and then asks for another one just during a peak season and then disappears for months together. So the fact that there was repetitive demand and he was unable to like keep in track of the demand, so that really helped. And we had laid out an entire plan as to like how we wanted to grow, and we kept overshooting that more and more.
Yeah.
And he's seen us grow from like nothing, like before launch, to where we are now, where he's now making a lot more products. There's a lot more inventory that he's building up. that by itself is a very, very good promise that we've kept. And just the sincerity and the way you're, building out the business makes a difference. But ultimately, any factory wants his or her factory to be utilized,
Yeah.
and we've more than over delivered there, which is what is important. And we've been running this journey together. Like, to get the first box out, there's just so many more. You solve one problem, three other problems come through. You solve those three problems, 30 other problems come through. And then you have to and you come to a point where, like, oh god, 2 months ago what we had was much better, and you can't go back to that.
Go
It's not a
back.
software
It's
pitch
not
where you just
software.
like take away code, because once you touch a mold, you have to live with it. You have to like go back, and there are certain parts where you can take away something, but you can't add back something. So,
I
like
remember
any
you had
But
relationship,
also,
it
I
just
think
goes
what
through a
Mahesh
period.
is missing out on is a lot of the vendors, customer relationship, right? It is not about um, asking for products, asking for questions. I think Mahesh went and spent a lot of time there on the factory floor
Yeah.
trying to
Yeah.
solve some of these problems
Yeah.
himself, trying to give ideas to the manufacturer. And he was getting his hands dirty as well there, right? And I think these are appreciated
Yeah.
by the manufacturer.
Yeah.
These are subtle things that you do as a part
Yeah.
of, who you are. These
Right.
get appreciated in the long term.
Well, I remember you had mentioned that Stan is the second generation of his
Yeah.
family, right? And he had an argument with his dad when he talked about that he'll build these boxes for you.
Yeah.
So in some ways, you're creating two companies, not just Basil, but also his factory.
Yeah. I mean, that's also like it goes on the entire sincerity also like goes on.
Yeah.
The entire family sees like, I mean, been there enough times. She's been there enough times.
Right.
But ultimately, I think if you look at over the last 30 odd months, his factory is
Yeah.
reaping the benefits of
I
taking that
remember
call.
going there and
Right.
seeing so
Yeah.
many more bento boxes.
Yeah. And I think that's what matters. Ultimately, that's what matters. Like, I mean, relationships can take you to, it can open the door, but then performance is what makes you continue.
Right.
And that's what, like, and there's a lot more to be done as well going ahead.
So, Harni, you had talked about understanding the customer, leak proof, etc. I want you to take a step back and just talk about what did the two of you noticed about parents' behavior? Because like if you think of Milton and Cello, they have been selling for 40 years, producing mass products. But what did you see the change in the consumer behavior that made you at least some bit of confident, even if the confidence was 300 units a month, that you will be able to sell an expensive bento box?
I think the fundamental thing is millennials became parents. This was the generation that was very different from the previous generation. Access to a lot of money, consumer spending. As they became parents, kids and kids' products share of wallet, right, became significantly higher. The other piece really is that as we became parents, we wanted a lot of things as kids, which we didn't have access to. I think I remember before kids, we when we went to Paris, we didn't even go to Disneyland. Like, who'd go to Disneyland? But with kids, when we went to Disneyland, we probably enjoyed it a lot more than our children. So there is a psychological aspect there, right? Parents are living through kids. And whatever they didn't have access to,
They want to give it to
they
the
wanted
kids.
to give it to their kids because it's their pathway to kind of live the world that they kind of missed, right? This is the psychological aspect. But fundamentally, yes, they became parents, had a lot of access to money. They were carrying products that look good. They were willing to spend. In a lot of kids category, basically kids is an afterthought for most of the vertical players. Because before us, there was no horizontal player, right? Like kids buy bags from Milton, kids
Yeah.
buy bags from American Tourister, lunchboxes from Milton, bags from American. They're all vertical companies. 70% of the revenue comes from adults. So all the products are designed and built for adults as opposed to the early morning school packing routine. There's a fundamental difference in how you design what you optimize for, which is why you wouldn't see a lunchbox with a design because design is not why adults buy a lunchbox.
Yeah.
It's why kids buy a
That's why you
lunchbox.
have the black bento box, which a lot
Yes.
of adults also
Yes.
buy, by the way.
Adults also use because I said, right, they want to live the life that they missed.
But
So
then
yeah.
who makes the purchase decision? Like, who are you really selling to? The
So
kids or the parents or both? How do they think about it?
So okay, parents is the primary, especially because we are digital first,
Yeah.
online. We are building for two consumer segments, right? Two parents and children. Both of them are demanding, both of them discerning, both of them are very hard to please, right? We're building for both of them. The primary decision maker is always the parents. What they focus on is the functionality, the technicality, the price point, budgeting, etc. Now, where children come in is the design and the visual piece. If there are two products that are very similar, offer similar offering, which brand to pick, which design to pick is where the children come. We've actually been on a lot of consumer research where we've realized that today, I think parents give the Blinkit or the Amazon app with the
the
budget
kids.
set to the kids.
This
And
is the
kids-
price point. You can buy whatever you want.
and then kids.
So the parents are selecting the price
Price
and
point,
the
the
kids are
kids
actually selecting what appeals to them.
appeals to them.
So talk a little bit more about the design, right? The philosophy. How do you like that is the OG, right? The one that is most popular. How did you came up with that, and what is the underlying philosophy of designing these products?
So there is the industrial design and the visual design.
Yeah.
There are two aspects to design, and both of these are done in house for us. Industrial design is where the parents come in. They say, "I need 3 compartments. I need 2 compartments. I need it 500 grams. I need it 400 grams, etc." Right? And similarly, when we do it for bags or insulated food jar, they come up with the requirements. I need 400 ml. I need 3 liters. I need it at this price point. I need 5 compartments, etc. So the functional insights we derive it from parents, whatever they ask for, stated, unstated. But the important piece is like the visual piece, right? Ultimately, that's what in the long run will, keep us like one step ahead of everyone else in the market. That insight comes from children. And there, what we believe is we look at every lunchbox or every bag or every product that we put out as a canvas through which children can imagine, tell stories, and share these stories with others. So it's a great opportunity for us, and we are in a privileged position, right, to kind of in some way ignite imagination in children. Children ask for what they need. So some of our products like the Rally Valley, Pink Unicorn, right, which is the Pixie Dash, all these come from directly what children want, right? They want a car, they want trucks, they want cars, they want dinosaurs. Those are going to remain as is. But if you see today, our bestseller is actually what's called the Bengal bug. That's something that you see here. This came out of an insight that parents and children, they want to be rooted to their culture. Because it's a very nomadic lifestyle, right? Like generation today has moved away from, they don't know even their mother tongue or the language. So we launched an India inspired design that would help them connect back to their culture, to their roots, and tell stories. So that's the opportunity that we see in design, right? To be able to tell stories, and we'll keep doing drops every month. There is a new story that you can talk about.
Yeah.
It'll keep the conversation going.
Got it. On the customer side, one last question, Mahesh, maybe since you have lived through Uber days, right? Customer acquisition cost is a nightmare, right? And especially for all online brands also, how do you make sure that the cost of acquisition remains less, you're making money, and you're not dependent upon performance ads to scale? How do you guys think about that?
I think the groundwork for getting that done at scale efficiently happens much before the product goes live. The way we design products with a lot of research, both on, the qualitative research that you do by talking to as many potential consumers. And that's also, there is a nuance there. You don't talk just to the final purchase decision maker, but you talk about the user as well. Like for our lunchboxes, we spoke to parents, we spoke to kids, we spoke to cooks, and we spoke to maids who clean. Like a lot of design insights come from people who clean. Like certain design decisions are based upon that. That is one. Then marry that with also the digital research on, like, keyword searches, where are white spaces, what are price points, what is efficiency at that price point, and what are reviews saying. So once you do that, and then you come up with a bunch of designs, and then you iterate those designs again on consumer testing, and then you get it out, and you place a very high bar on what you want to launch. All of this
Eventually leads to lower marketing costs.
which is why we were able to like sell off in the first 7 days, right? That is what, and then like consumers keep wanting, and then you make sure, then your job is to just make sure that you get good supply at scale. Don't go out of stock. Then there are great, there are really, really well-oiled virtuous cycles and flywheels that, say an Amazon will make sure that you're always doing well organically. And that's what you keep working towards. So make sure that you get the best product out, iterate as fast as possible, and then when you know that there is, and we've have enough of a playbook now to know where there is PMF at every level, at industrial design level, at visual design level, and also what kind of product features that are required. Then you just focus on just getting supply, 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 supply. And then once you do this consistently, and of course, with a lot more products, a lot more category depth, and also like different categories, the brand effect also starts taking effect. We are not probably there yet as much as we want. We are also like less than 2 years, but we believe that we are heading in the right direction. That's
What is a
we-
brand, Harni? Like I am never able to answer that question, so I always default to saying something. I don't know what
No,
it is.
I look at it just purely simply if a consumer thinks about a category, if they're looking to buy in a category, the top three brands that they can recollect organically.
the names.
The names.
Yeah.
That's the brand. The second way to think about it is, I mean, and then the after effects of that is that your organic share would increase. You would start spending less on marketing. Now, any channel, any product that you put out, you focus on each product having to be really unique and differentiated. That pressure will start falling because there's an overall trust in the brand.
In the brand.
Anything that Basil puts out, there are only two things, right? Like they trust you for the product quality and that you will take care, and then they like what you put out. So, pretty much any category that you think of, the categories that you want to play in, if you're among the top three in the consideration set and awareness, you are a brand. Eventually, brand and revenue will catch up.
Catch up,
Is
yeah.
what my belief always has been, and they both feed into each other. Has been my belief.
So that brings me to the next question that I have, and also a question that we debated internally a lot, which is why is it hard for anyone else to copy what you're doing? Is it one thing or is it multiple? And like now that the Chinese manufacturers and Indian manufacturers have the molds, right?
Yeah.
Somebody else should be able to go and
So-
launch a semiconductor box.
So I'll give you a. You can play one music instrument. Say, suppose you play the violin.
I don't play any, but anyways,
Uh,
for this at least I can imagine myself playing violin.
so you can play the violin really well. Someone else can play a cello really well. Someone else can play the flute really well. Right? So you have like 10 different people. You put all of them in a room. Right? It's not going to be instantly and spontaneously easy to get them to play a symphony really well. The sum of the parts, right,
Yeah.
is not going to always give you an output which is so much closer to perfection that you need.
Makes sense.
Right? That's in a nutshell is how I will say this. Like you can do your job really well, right? But each part can be perfect. But to put them all together and make them work really seamlessly is where a large part of the challenge comes, because each of our products have multiple different moving parts. That's one thing. Anything you want to?
No, go ahead.
Right? That is one part. We are not saying it's impossible at all. We can do it, others can do it. The thing is, there is time involved, and time is money today. And in that time, when someone else is trying to figure out how to copy this and
You already
move
have an
on,
advantage.
we know what to do to make this better. We are on our way to make it better. We have new products that come out through consumer insights, and we are on the way to getting there. And now, as a brand, we are getting into other categories, right?
Yeah.
And we are focusing while we are growing the existing category we are in. We are going deeper into that. We're also getting into other categories, which also, again, the choice of those categories, some of which were obvious, but like the timing of those categories and what we need to do there comes again from consumer insights. So I think speed of execution is one, and also the fact that time in market is way more important than an ability to be able to replicate
So
something.
all of those small things finally
Yeah,
compound.
but I
right?
think that's where the difference between brand and product comes in. Anybody can copy your product, but they cannot copy what you stand for. And to be really honest, I would want to kill my own products. I mean,
Before
before
someone else
someone else kills it, right? I would want to launch something that kills
Much
it.
better.
And I would want to keep diversifying my risk, both
right.
across products, categories, and channels, right? And the reality is today we are already a top 3 player in Amazon in the lunchbox category, which means from here on, somebody is going to copy us, right? Somebody is going to take share away from us. We are not the smallest anymore, right? So we will have to keep innovating to get more share from others and diversify. But this is really where the difference between brand and products come. You can start with the product differentiation, but eventually you will have to start standing for something, right? And the reality is, even in China, I think a lot of people have copied our products, but those manufacturers will come to us first to make sure to see if we would want to sell it first, because there's a difference between making products and being able to sell the
it,
product
yes,
well.
Yeah. Just talk a little bit more about the categories, right? Since you stand for something, how do you decide what else to launch, right? I remember when we decided that we'll invest in you guys, between that, you had another bestseller,
Yeah.
the insulated
Yeah.
jar.
Yeah. So
How
Ben,
does that happen? And how are you thinking about the future categories, giving the same brand persona or
yeah.
the principles in
So
mind?
we are very clear that we are building out an iconic destination for kids 4 to 12. So we will go after every category that kids 4 to 12 interact with. That's pretty much the long term goal. Now we started with lunchboxes. Um, as we started doing really well in lunchbox and doubling down in lunchboxes, we looked at the next closest associated categories, which is insulated food jar. And today it's larger than lunchbox in terms of revenue share for us, right? That's become a significantly big category. But the idea is to kind of cover school first. So, meals, bottles, school bags, everything related to school essentials for kids. And then you do stationery, and then you get to their home. That's pretty much the long term goal.
Just imagining all of this makes me nervous, right? How would you deliver all of this thing? Because when
You
you
don't
think
deliver
about,
all of this in 1 year. That's not what we said.
but at the pace at which you're going, you're almost delivering everything in 1 year.
So, I think,
But that's a classic debate, right? Between focus
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
and
I
diversification.
think when you start, you
Yeah.
need to be really focused.
Yeah.
That's pretty much what we did, right? We were actually a one product company
year.
for one
Correct.
year.
Yeah.
The reason is, I think when you start and you have less capital, it is super, you don't have any room to make mistakes. You have to be super sharp in terms of your targeting, your inventory availability, all of it. So when you start, you have to be focused. But my belief is in India, because we are going after an age segment, if I were going after lunchbox as a category across all ages, I would probably just put out multiple SKUs within the same category. I wouldn't even think about school.
Yeah.
But because I'm going after an age segment 4 to 12, to become meaningfully large, it's important for me to start diversifying across different categories as well. Right? Because the ambition is to build a very large company here. Um, but you can still be very systemic about what you focus on. We're not doing 10 categories at one go.
One go.
We go category by category, try to win the category. And as you win a category, you go deeper and slowly replicate the secret sauce across multiple categories. Now we also have design as an edge, right? The visual design. So it is pretty easy to replicate the visual design edge across multiple categories.
But it will still be hard to replicate the functional design part, right? Figuring out what innovation you
That we
do
have to
across bottle,
That
across
again,
bags.
I think there is no easy way to do it than to just go and talk to as many consumers as possible. Do a lot of research. I think we've now started to understand a lot more in depth on the power of observation. You can talk. I can talk to you and ask you what do you want in a backpack or a bottle or any other category, right? But when you observe the user in play, like with bags specifically, right? Like could be like how do they place it in the bus? How do they carry it? Where is it getting placed in the school? How do they use it? The lunch bag, what is getting done? That is these are very small nuances of research that start adding in, and all of this keeps compounding. I think one of the things is that we've gotten a little better at and we are continuing to leverage is across categories, the research is a lot more ongoing now. We have we have multiple programs for research going on in our company, targeting certain specific questions across categories. The launch and when we will launch what, those are determined by vectors like are we having the supply in place? Are we able to get the right production samples? Are we timing the market right? Like for example, school, obviously we're targeting back to school. We won't have as many categories out as possible for the school
When the school
season.
season starts.
Yeah. So those determine, launch and all of that. But in terms of getting products up and ready, which one thing that I've understood, the way we design and get products out, it takes time. So the sooner you start, the sooner you build a very sustainably scalable supply chain, it is better for you because the way we scale very, very fast. Once we put a product and it becomes a bestseller, then we scale really, really fast. So it's important to have those supply chains in order.
But I'm sure there will still be product that you would have launched didn't work out.
Oh yeah.
And as you were talking about earlier, in this
So I'll
kind
talk
of
about the
business,
learning, right?
yeah.
I think when we launched Mentor boxes, we also launched water bottles.
Hmm.
Pretty much
Yeah.
very early. We didn't expect to sell much, but we just thought it would make sense to give consumers water bottles. The water bottle piece was not really thought through in terms of design. The bento box was, because that's what we built it on.
Yeah.
And we realized that it didn't really work because it was very similar to every other product in the market. There was no differentiation. But after that, we've learned it, right? Like, which is why we make sure that every product that goes actually has a meaningful feature differentiation, either in terms of how it looks, how it feels, how it is for kids to carry, etc. So even for bags, we I think we've been designing for a very long time now, right? Like since maybe the last
Yeah,
6 to 8 months,
6 8 months.
and
Yeah.
iterating so many samples. The reason we do that is, again, our thought on this has slightly changed. When we launched, we were a nobody. So consumers were buying us for products. But as you grow, as you become a brand, consumers will start buying you for who you
Who
are.
you are. Yeah.
And at that time, you might be able to, launch a little bit faster. Of course, you'll make sure that the product has a reason to exist, but it doesn't have to be supremely differentiated for consumers to pick you because
Yeah.
they already trust you. But that's the inflection point that you're aiming for, and everything that you do right now is to get to that inflection point.
Got it. Mahesh, for you,
Yeah.
like you have worked at Uber before. What's one thing that you are implementing in how you're building the team and the organization that you learned from Uber that you feel is
Yeah.
To not have a team, 3 people run everything.
So
I'll
I've,
come to that. Uber and Amazon don't sit well together in
yeah,
one
exactly.
area.
So, of course, I think there are similarities. The unprecedented transparency of data access and the specific focus on data-driven analysis is common to both Uber and Amazon. I think the one thing that I have deeply ingrained and something that we implement every day and something that I keep passing on to the team is this relentless disrespect for, you know, whenever someone says no to you, you don't take that for an answer, and then you figure out whether if you have to break down a wall, you headbutt and break a wall, or where you want to
Future
stop it.
investors need to be careful. You will break into their home.
Or
I've
build a
seen
wall
this
where it's
of your
required, right?
yeah.
Like I think that is something like that's why like you've
Yes.
seen you've seen like you've seen our marketing efficiency, you've seen our trade terms, you've seen the capital efficiency. If we had accepted status quo,
Absolutely. Yeah.
this wouldn't have happened.
Yeah.
And I see this in practice with the team every day. Like we don't accept something that if someone says, "Oh, this is the best that we can do," we just don't take that. Like there is you in certain cases you irritate them enough to like agree to a midpoint, or you provide enough value and you make them very very clearly see. And if they still don't accept that, probably sometimes they are not the right person at the right time for us. But just not being content with status quo and not taking no for an answer is something that we are very very. I'm very grateful for who for having ingrained that from Uber. And this is not just for the company; it's for life. It's a
Yeah.
life
I
lesson.
see. And Harni, anything from Amazon?
Lot of what we do at Basil is actually driven by Amazon, because I believe Amazon has set a blueprint for how to build processes at scale. Everybody who comes in, right, especially because we hire a lot of freshers,
Yeah.
youngsters, and we train them here. The first thing I tell all of them is to read the book working backwards, because they've never delivered a project. So
Yeah.
they don't know that you have to start by setting a timeline and working backward on when what needs to be done, right? So that's one. But apart from, I think customer obsession, consumer obsession, this is something that everybody
Everyone.
does.
Yeah.
I think two tools specifically that we use a lot. One is writing. Everybody across Basel writes for everything, right? And they come to a meeting with a pre-read, with a doc. In 10 minutes, you're able to quickly decide and move forward. Otherwise, it's just chaos and confusion in everyone's head. The second tool that we use is the weekly WBRs. The designers also press in numbers, right? And consume numbers. So we're a very design and content and creative led team, right? Majority is actually on this side. But despite that, everyone presents numbers and data. This has been happening since we were at like maybe 15 lakh revenue. But that gives good visibility
Yeah.
to everyone in the organization on what we're going after. I think these two tools is something that I will carry to life. And I think these are great tools for every company.
So if Jeff Bezos tomorrow decides that he wants to build a consumer brand, he can join you guys. And he'll feel completely at home, right?
There's actually one more thing here. Like,
Yeah.
at the time I was at Uber, writing or documenting was not something that we had time for.
Yeah, I can't imagine you writing
So
docs.
there was enough
Mahesh
for
is
me
very
to say no.
vibe led.
Yeah, right. And also the way I work with factories, I work with there's a lot of operational groundwork, right? Like warehouses, logistics. I didn't want to write, but in true Uber style, she didn't take that no for an answer. So even my teams, like choice of like where to expand, next logistic partner or next warehousing partner, team presence data, they come with a pre-read, and in like 10 minutes we decide and then we move on. So one thing that all of this is geared towards removing mental laziness, right? That's one thing that we just don't tolerate at all. Both from ourselves, we hold ourselves to a high bar,
Yeah.
and from the team, because what you do reflects on the team, and that vibe continues.
So how do you guys handle disagreement? Husband, wife, team, Uber, Amazon, different principles, different background. Who has the final say when I can? I think I know
Yes.
the answer.
That's why we write. So that everybody has a medium through which they can vent out their frustrations at least.
And then finally someone decides.
Yeah, I mean, I think disagreements ensure that the best answer wins. And
Politically correct answer. I know what the right answer is.
no, I think we also are very clear on where,
Yeah.
the last. I mean, having the last word is not important. Let's put it that way, right? Uh, as parents also, right? Like you don't
Yeah.
want to fight to have the best answer. You want to do what's right for your child. That's the same thing here. I think there's an incredibly large amount of trust that whatever I'm saying or what you're saying, it's towards the same end goal.
Yes.
The means may not be something that we agree with, which is important, right? Like who's to say that like I'm always right or she's always right?
Right.
One thing that we are very clear every day when we wake up is we have zero confidence that we have all the answers. But we can try as much as possible to ensure that in our mind space we are doing everything. That's what having no mental laziness is what we want to get to. And disagreements are a very, very powerful tool to help eliminate that.
So let's now talk about the future. Let's say 5 years from now, you look back at this podcast, right? Where would you want to see Basil be at in a successful case? And I'll talk about the case which is not so successful, but let's talk about a happy case.
That's the only place, yeah?
Yeah.
There is no other place. So I think right from the time we started, we wanted to build an iconic destination for kids. So that's what we are looking at 5 years from here, right? Everything for kids 4 to 12, the top of the mind first brand out there is Basil, and we keep satisfying consumers' needs there across multiple categories, right? Like school, I'm fairly certain within the next 1 or 2 years we'll get out of the way. But beyond school, right? Like your home, your other accessories, rest of kids. That's pretty much where we want to be in the 5 year journey.
How big can this be?
So school kids essentials is a very large category in India, right? Like it's a 60,000 crore category. And you have and I'm assuming we also, right now we are at probably the top 7%, 10%. We are building for the top 7%, 10%. But over time, we will build a little bit in the next segment as well.
The consumption also will
Will also improve, and we will build for the next segment as well across multiple categories, and we would build our distribution strength as well. Right now we are a 2 channel company. We would get to offline, etc. So how large it can be, I would say it depends on the ambition of the founder. That's pretty much how large it's out here for taking. You can pretty much take a cut across all categories for 4 to 12, which is a large wallet share for parents. So your ambition is what will limit how large you can be.
Because I don't see any reversal of the fact that parents will want to spend more to get the best products for their children. Like a parent wants to feel really good about making the choices for his or her child. And kids just want the coolest products in town, right? Kids don't really care about functional design. I think they just want to have really cool products to use.
Yeah.
I don't see that changing across categories. And there's zero reversal in the way our day-to-day lifestyles are going to be changing. You will still have kids going to school, you still have them playing, you'll still have them enjoying everything with that innocence that is so unique to kids, right?
Yes.
And you want to, like, that's what she's talking about, storytelling and all of that. We take that responsibility very seriously. We are basically having the opportunity to let every child live vicariously through the lens of imagination, through having that innocence and purity of appreciating a good time every day. And parents will love to be facilitators of that process. So that across categories, if you look at every single touch point of a kid during the day to day of their lives, so many categories are out there. And again, TAM in our sense is very strongly linked to a founder and their team's ambition and execution hustle. So
So on the execution side, what keeps you up at night? Is there anything that you're currently worried about?
there's this food stall
I
below
know
my
it.
apartment where they like keep talking late nights. Uh, it changes every time. Supply is almost always what I keep thinking through and very closely. Like I mean, cash flows and finance is
Yeah.
something that I always have prioritized, right? Um, One thing that used to keep me up is like I never understood how pink was that pink. Okay, so I stopped listening to my designers. If they say that like this pink is right, I work with the factory to get that pink. Okay, every pink looks the same to me, but like I don't know. I've given up on that battle, and life has been a lot better since then. But that's what, and I think we are way more privileged to be in this space than worry. I think worry can like kill a lot of.
I think we want to grow really fast, very quickly, and which is where the supply and the cash sort of worry comes in. Right? So, because ultimately you are in a business where you need to be super capital efficient. Working capital will make or break you.
By the way, on that statement of growing very fast, can you actually grow a business like this very fast, the way traditionally investors or VCs think of? Or is that an unfair expectation? And if you try to chase that, maybe you will land up much shorter than what you probably would have.
So you should not chase revenue. You can build fast, but not for the purpose of driving just revenue,
Yeah.
right? As long as every revenue piece that you add adds to the brand and the brand's overall story,
Yeah.
then you should go
Then it is okay.
fast and you should do it. For example, an easy pathway out for us would be to put an electric lunchbox. I know if anybody is building a lunchbox category, it's a white space. You can become number one and have more revenue than me by putting out an electric lunchbox. But it doesn't add value to the brand. Because kids, I know I can double my revenue overnight by putting an electric lunchbox, and it will still sell because the parents might buy, but they would probably buy it for themselves and not for the children. So, in the long term, it wouldn't add to the brand, it would add to your revenue today. So as long as in your head you're very clear, and I think the good part is right now there are enough people in the team at Basil who hold us accountable. I actually pushed for electric lunchbox. My industrial designer pushed back on me. She said we would never do it. She did a lot of consumer research to come back and said the primary audience here is office buyer and not the children.
Not the kids.
Yeah. So as long as whatever you do adds to the brand, then if you're growing fast, it makes sense. But if you're growing fast for the sake of growing fast, just to add revenue, that's a very short term lens.
Yeah. No, very well said, Harni. And I think that brings us to the close also. But what we have really liked about the two of you is the method behind the madness, right? You're not chasing vanity metrics, and it's very rare to find products with genuine consumer love. In fact, when I was looking at your product and we used your products, right? It's very difficult to create consumer love. And I come from my own startup experience. You can actually create revenues, generate MAUs, DAOs. But finally, at the end of the day, consumer love is the hardest thing to create. And you guys have done something special. So you have the right platform. And now it's up to you how ambitious you are and how big this will become. But we are really fortunate to be part of this journey, right? And hopefully we'll do another podcast in 5 years. Where we'll be saying that how big we have become versus what we had imagined it to be. So thank you so much for both of your time, and look forward to the next 5 years, next 10 years, next 15 years.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Dear listeners, thank you for listening to this episode of the podcast. Subscribe now on your favorite podcast app for free, and you'll be the first one to know when new episodes are available. Just search for Prime Venture Partners Podcast in Apple Podcast, Spotify, Castbox, or however you get your podcasts. Then hit subscribe. And if you have enjoyed the show, we would be really grateful if you leave us a review on Apple Podcast. To read the full transcript, find the link in the show notes.